My parents wanted to give my share of inheritance to their favored daughter, but little did they know that my grandparents had other plans. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to post something like this, but after everything that's happened, I needed to vent, and maybe someone out there has been in a similar situation. Strap in, because this is going to be a long ride. So, to set the stage, I come from what you'd probably call a typical middle-class family. My parents worked hard all their lives, and growing up, I thought we were a pretty normal family. But as I got older, things became a lot clearer. My younger sister, Lily, has always been the golden child. It didn't bother me too much as a kid because, well, I didn't know any better. But as I got older, I started to notice just how blatant the favoritism was. If I got an A on a test, I'd get a good job, but if Lily got a B, it was like she cured cancer. She'd get rewards, extra praise, and more attention for things that were, honestly, kind of mediocre. Fast forward to adulthood. I'm in my early 30s now, and Lily is in her late 20s. I've always been independent, moved out early, worked my way through school, and built a life I'm proud of. Meanwhile, Lily stayed closer to home, bouncing between jobs, relying on my parents for financial support, and never quite getting her life together. And don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but it's frustrating seeing the clear differences in how we're treated. Now, here's where things get interesting. My grandparents were incredibly important to me. They were the people I would run to when I needed advice, and they never treated me differently than they treated Lily. In fact, my grandma used to say that she admired my independence and work ethic, something she didn't see as much in Lily. My grandparents were well off, having accumulated a decent amount of wealth over the years through investments and property. They always told me and Lily that they'd leave us both something in their will, and I never really thought too much about it. I wasn't relying on an inheritance or anything, but it was a nice thought. A couple of years ago, my grandfather passed away. My grandmother followed about a year later. After she died, my parents became very secretive about their estate plans. My gut was telling me that something was off, but I didn't push it too hard at the time. I figured, whatever they had planned, it was their decision. Then, one day, out of the blue, I got a call from my mom asking me to come over. When I arrived, both my parents were sitting at the kitchen table, looking serious. My dad cleared his throat and started talking about how they had been working on the estate plan and how they wanted to do what's best for the family. It was all vague, but eventually, they dropped the bombshell. They planned to leave the bulk of their estate to Lily. I was shocked. I didn't even know what to say at first. They tried to explain that Lily needed it more because she wasn't as financially stable as I was. They even went as far as to say that since I was doing well, I didn't need the inheritance. My mind was spinning. I sat there, trying to process everything, and all I could think was, how is this fair? I wasn't asking for a bigger share, but to be cut out entirely because I was responsible with my money? It felt like a slap in the face. I didn't blow up or anything. I just calmly told them I was disappointed and left. After that, I distanced myself from them. I didn't want to cause drama, but I also couldn't stand to be around people who clearly valued one child more than the other. A few months later, I got a call from a lawyer. He represented my grandparents' estate. I was confused at first because I thought everything had already been settled, but what he told me next left me speechless. Apparently, my grandparents had set up a trust before they passed away. A trust that my parents didn't know about. And guess who they left the bulk of their estate to? Me. Not Lily. Not my parents. Me. I was floored. The lawyer explained that my grandparents had always intended for me to have a larger share because they believed I would use it wisely and not squander it. They left Lily something too, but it was a much smaller portion. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. I didn't tell my parents at first. I wasn't sure how they'd react, and honestly, I didn't want to deal with the fallout. But a few weeks later, my mom called me again, asking if I'd come around to their decision to leave everything to Lily. I couldn't help myself, I laughed. Not a mean laugh, just. I couldn't believe the irony of the situation. I told her about the trust, how my grandparents had left me a significant inheritance, and how they had clearly seen what I had seen all along, that the favoritism wasn't fair. My mom was silent for a long time. Then, without another word, she hung up. Later that day, I got a text from my sister. It was a long, angry message accusing me of being selfish and not caring about family. She said I didn't need the money and that I should have given it to her since she wasn't doing as well. I was floored. The entitlement was unreal. She didn't congratulate me or ask me how I was doing, she just demanded that I give her a portion of what our grandparents had left me. I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Sorry that our grandparents didn't trust you with their money? It wasn't my fault. I didn't ask for any of this, but it was clear to me that my family had always seen me as the responsible one, and somehow, that made me less deserving in their eyes. Since then, my relationship with my parents and sister has been strained, to say the least. They still expect me to cave and do the right thing by giving my share to Lily, but I haven't budged. I worked hard to get where I am, and I'm not about to give up what my grandparents left me just because my sister can't get her life together. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Update 1. Hey everyone. I didn't expect this to blow up the way it did, but thank you for all the support and kind messages. I've been reading through the comments, and I wanted to clear up a few things that have been asked a lot. First, a lot of you have asked if I'm planning to go no contact with my family. I've thought about it, but I'm not quite there yet. I've put some distance between us, and I've stopped engaging in conversations about the inheritance. However, I haven't fully cut ties. I'm still trying to navigate how to move forward, but it's tough when your family sees you more as a bank than a person. Second, many of you have asked if my parents were aware of the trust before my grandparents passed away. As far as I know, they had no idea. My grandparents were always very private about their finances, and I don't think they ever discussed their plans with my parents. That's why my parents' plan to give everything to Lily felt like such a betrayal. It was clear they had no idea what my grandparents had intended. Lastly, I've gotten a lot of messages from people saying I should consider giving Lily some of the inheritance, and I just want to address that. Look, I'm not a monster. I understand that Lily is struggling, and I don't want to see her fail. But the reality is, she's had every opportunity to get her life together, and she hasn't. My grandparents trusted me with this money for a reason, and I don't think giving it to Lily would honor their wishes. It would just enable her to continue making bad choices. So, for now, I'm holding on to what they left me. I'll keep you all posted if anything changes, but for now, that's where things stand. Update 2. It's been a few months since my last update, and things have definitely taken a turn. After I told my parents about the trust, things got tense. My mom called me a few days after the initial conversation and asked if I could reconsider giving some of the money to Lily. I told her that I wasn't going to do that, and she got really upset, saying that I was being selfish and that family comes first. My dad stayed out of it for the most part, but I could tell he was disappointed. They tried to guilt-trip me by saying things like, well, when we're gone, Lily will have no one to rely on, or, you don't want to see your sister end up homeless, do you? It was honestly exhausting. Then, about a month ago, I got another message from Lily. This time, it wasn't angry, it was desperate. She told me she was in a bad spot financially and needed help. She didn't directly ask for money, but it was heavily implied. I thought about it for a while, and I even considered helping her out. But something didn't sit right with me. I know my sister, and I know that if I gave her anything, it wouldn't fix the root of her problems. It would just be a band-aid. So, I didn't respond. And that's when everything blew up. My mom called me, absolutely livid, saying that I was letting my sister suffer and that I was no better than a stranger to them now. She even said that if I didn't help Lily, they would cut me out of their will entirely. At that point, I was so fed up that I told her I didn't care. I didn't want their money if it came with strings attached, and I wasn't going to be manipulated into bailing out my sister. Since then, things have been pretty icy between us. I haven't spoken to my parents in a few weeks, and Lily hasn't reached out again. I feel bad, in a way, because I don't want to see my family fall apart. But at the same time, I can't keep sacrificing my own well-being to fix problems that aren't mine to fix. I guess what I've learned through all of this is that sometimes, family can be toxic. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. And sometimes, you have to stand your ground, even if it means standing alone. Thanks again for all the support. It's been really helpful to hear from people who've been through similar situations. I'm not sure where things will go from here, but for now, I'm focusing on myself and the life I've built. I think that's what my grandparents would have wanted. Update 3. It's been nearly a year since my last update, and a lot has changed. I wanted to give everyone who followed my story a final update, as I've made some decisions that have really shifted things in my life. First off, I've officially gone no contact with my parents. After months of back and forth, emotional manipulation, and guilt tripping, I realized that our relationship wasn't salvageable. My parents made it clear that they valued Lily's comfort over my boundaries, and I couldn't keep putting myself in a position where I felt used and undervalued. So, I made the difficult decision to cut them out of my life, at least for the time being. As for Lily, I haven't heard from her in months. From what I've gathered through mutual acquaintances, she's still struggling, but she's also made some efforts to get her life together. She got a more stable job, and while she's not exactly thriving, she's not in the dire situation she was in before. I hope, for her sake, that she's starting to figure things out. But at the same time, I know I can't be the one to save her. Now, for the good news. After a lot of reflection, I've decided to honor my grandparents in the best way I know how. I used a portion of the inheritance they left me to start a scholarship fund in their name. The scholarship is aimed at helping students who, like me, had to work their way through school and didn't have a lot of financial support. It feels good to know that my grandparents' legacy is being put to good use, and I think they'd be proud of the decision I made. Overall, I feel at peace with everything that's happened. It wasn't easy, and it's still painful at times to think about how my family has treated me. But I've learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away from toxic relationships, even if those relationships are with your own family. Thanks again to everyone who has been so supportive throughout this whole ordeal. I couldn't have made it through without the kindness and encouragement from this community. This journey has taught me a lot about myself, my family, and what it means to truly value the people in your life. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means walking away from people who you thought would always be there. And while that's a painful realization, it's also incredibly freeing. If you're in a similar situation, my advice is to trust your instincts and remember that you deserve to be treated with respect, even by your family. You don't owe anyone anything, especially if they're not willing to meet you halfway. I wish you all the best, and I hope my story can help others going through similar experiences. Take care.